Welcome, everybody, to Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Bob Wheeler. Bob Wheeler is a certified public accountant, and he is a stand-up comic as well. So has a lot to talk about and to share. Most importantly, he has just come out with a brand new book called The Money Nerve, Negotiating the Emotions of Money. And Bob, I think right now with what's going on in our world and in all around us, what an incredible topic to talk about, because I think there isn't a person that doesn't have an emotion right now relative to money, right?
Absolutely.
He has some great insights into looking at how do you have a healthy relationship with money. And so I'm going to let you get started. And one of the things that I sure would like to know is, how do you have a healthy relationship with money, especially in a very uncertain time like we have right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. The thing is, most people, when I initially talk to people and say that there's emotions involved, they'll just sort of laugh at me and say, I don't have any emotions around money. And then I'll say, oh, really? So when you split the bill, do you split it evenly? Do you make sure that you paid for your dessert and not somebody else's wine? And they're like, oh, gosh, yeah, okay. Yes, I get emotional. And once people start to realize that they're making decisions based on unconscious money decisions or money beliefs, or mom and dad's voice pops in, then once we get aware of it, we can actually then start saying, oh gosh, I didn't realize this was going on for me. Yeah, I'm in fear. I've got anxiety. I've got a family. There's no money coming in right now. We got to pay the mortgage, got to pay the rent, and allow some space to just actually acknowledge that there's some fear and anxiety there.
So when there's fear and anxiety, most of us go to flight.
Right.
You can't duke it out with your money, basically. You'd like to sometimes, but there's nobody to duke it out with except yourselves. So right. The other response that we have with fear is flight. So, and that's not healthy either. So
right.
How do you begin that conversation?
So if somebody's in a relationship, so husband and wife, they're in the middle of this stress right now, sit down and start talking about, okay, realistically, what's the worst thing that can happen? What are our options? Do we really need the cable? Like, what can we start taking off the table that isn't really going to help us in the moment? And just actually start to realize, okay, they're not going to take away my house. Nobody's going to arrest me. Everybody else is in the same boat. And to really just start affirming each other and saying, we're going to get through this. We're going to support each other. Let's look at all of it and realize we might get emotional. We might get angry or scared or reactive. And let's just know that this is something bigger than us. And let's really make an effort to just navigate through this and know that things are going to come up for us, so that it's not just, yes, I'm angry, and not addressing the fact that, yeah, because I'm terrified, I can't provide, or things were going so well before all of this happened.
So tell me, how many people need financial therapy?
Probably about 85% of the country. It's interesting. Even my clients that are very high wealth, they can have $10 million, $20 million. There's still these fears around, do I deserve it? Other people are suffering. Maybe people are going to find out I'm a fraud. There's somebody better than me, somebody more deserving. And so regardless of the level of income, I've had clients where their parents were multimillionaires, lost everything, and then they had to pretend like they were still wealthy so that none of their friends would know. And the pressure of trying to pretend like they were keeping up with the Joneses, was just incredible. Anxiety of being found out. Yeah.
So 85% are in need of some sort of financial therapy. Was that before COVID hit, or is that since COVID?
I would say it's certainly gone up a little bit, but I think that most people, even my very successful clients that I deal with, often our strategy meetings turn into a little bit of a therapy session because there's just so much that we're unaware of. I had a client who would be incredibly successful, and about every 4 or 5 years, she would have a major failure. And this pattern kept happening, and her mom would always save her. And so we were having a conversation, and I said, it's so weird. Every 5 or 6 years, the business fails after you make all this money, and your mom always bails you out. And we started exploring it and realized that was the only way that she felt her mom loved her, was when she saved her company.
Oh, wow.
And so she was creating this pattern of, mom will save me and show me that she loves me. Even though she was incredibly successful, incredibly smart, she was unconsciously sabotaging because she needed affirmation that mommy loved her.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, at all levels, we need affirmation, don't we?
We do. And yeah.
So tell me, you operate out of 2 coasts, California and New York. Why those 2 coasts?
Well, I work with a lot of entertainment people, and most entertainment takes place in New York and LA. And so I have a lot of clients that are on both coasts. And so it just made sense to be certified in both and being able to work with all of those. I work with other people besides entertainment, but I just work with a lot of small businesses that are special effects, animation, post-production, songwriters, and those are the 2 capitals of entertainment.
Sure. So I'm curious. You have done comedy. You're a stand-up comic, and have done a fair amount of work in that area. I want to come back to it because you have to be rich in stories from living life with people, right?
Yes.
You have something else. You are a hiker. You've done Kilimanjaro. You've done a number of major treks. It's not just a hike, it's a trek.
Yes.
So accounting and the trekking and the connection. You've also been with Africa, and there was something that happened there that was life-changing. So if you would share that, please.
Yeah. So, before my first overseas trip, I had a belief that only rich people traveled, and I wasn't rich, so I never traveled. And then, of course, that got challenged, and I did start traveling. And when I went to Africa, what happened was I had a mindset that we've only arrived and been successful if we've got the nice car, a house, a nice bank account. And that was sort of the model that I thought I was supposed to be working from. These people in Tanzania, where average income was $99 a year, were incredibly happy. And they kept saying, oh, you got to tell your friends and come back to our country. And my mind kept going, something's not right here. These people are happy. They don't have a big screen TV. They're not driving even like just a basic good car. And it really, really rocked my world to really start to look at what was important, and to see that what was important to them was relationship, connection, community, and just appreciating even the smallest things. What we would consider trash, they considered a treasure. And it really was such a great stretch for me to actually go back and realize, wait a minute, there's something bigger than just trying to hit all my marks and have the world go, good job.
Isn't that amazing?
Which is what I think we tend to do here.
So how did that then impact you when you came back? Because you work with people who have a fairly, at least our assumption is, people in the entertainment business have a fair amount of wealth. So
Yes.
Having had that insight, how did that change how you worked with people?
Well, what it helped me to realize was that it's great to make money. I enjoy making money. I enjoy building businesses. And it's not the only driving factor. So that when I see clients that are working 80 hours a week, which is what I was doing, that if it's not fulfilling, if it's not feeding your soul, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, then maybe it's time to step back and reevaluate. Because for me, I work with clients that I love to work with. I like working with nice people. I like working with people that appreciate what I do. And that just makes it fun for me. So it doesn't feel like work anymore. I actually feel like I'm in partnership with all of my clients. I'm in relationship with my clients. And it's not about how many tax returns can I crank out? How much money can I bill out for the week? But it's more about, am I giving fully of myself? Am I helping them reach their goals? And really trying to help people see it's great to have success. It's great to have financial abundance. There's so much you can do with that. And it's important to feed your soul and nourish yourself. And so for me, that was a big shift.
Got it. So you wrote The Money Nerve. You came to writing it because why? Why did you write it?
Well, so it was interesting. A lot of my friends are comics, and one of my friends I happened to be over at the Comedy Store, and my friend was crying because her family were all doctors and all very successful people. And she had just been shamed by her family for not being a good Jewish girl and going into comedy. And she's like, I'm the only one. I'm so stupid and I'm such a failure and I have all this credit card debt. And I said to her, you're not the only one. Lots and lots of people pretend like they have money and they're struggling financially, but they're projecting or presenting a certain way. And she was like, what? And she was shocked by that.
Right.
At the same time, I was also exploring my own financial sabotage. I was a CPA. Staff people that were admin clerks and stuff were making better investments than me, were buying houses. And I'm like, what's going on here? I know I make good money. I know I'm considered successful. And so I started my own journey about where was I self-sabotaging and why, and realized that a lot of us are working from emotions that we're not aware of. And so, like, David Ramsey, Susie Orman, it's great. What they tell you to do, save your money, don't use credit cards. It's great. But if you don't understand why you're doing it, it's hard to change the habit.
Got it.
And so that propelled me to write the book so people would know they're not alone and there's no shame in not knowing how to do everything right off the bat.
So Bob, it sounds to me like more than accounting, you could do therapy for people who are desperate to change their lives around.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I find when people start to deal with their relationship with money, that can also start to apply to their health. It can start to apply to the relationships with their family. And, because I know myself and I know other people where I had money and so I felt guilty, so I'd give it away instead of learning how to set a boundary and say, I actually need to take care of myself first, and then I can still help you, but not out of guilt, out of abundance or out of choice. And so I do think looking at your relationship with money forces you to evaluate, am I worthy? Am I good enough? Can I set boundaries? Am I clear about my vision? And am I okay with being successful and standing? Because if you become successful and you're a leader, you will become a target. And people say to me, but if I get successful, people might talk about me. Yeah, they might. But I'm still going to go for it, knowing that the rewards are so much more. But it's just a wonderful thing to be able to step up and say, this is the legacy, this is the life that I want, and not apologize for wanting to have success.
Got it. So you have also put together a course for people. The purpose of your course is what?
So the purpose of the course is to really help people start to understand their relationship to money, to start looking at lineage, parental beliefs, cultural beliefs. We grow up in different communities. somebody that grows up a Quaker might be somebody different than grows up a surfer. And starting to realize, oh, these are the normatives that I grew up with. These were the mantras that my parents told me. Money doesn't grow on trees. You should only save, or you should always spend because you never know. And to start to understand what we learn about gender, right? In some families, men have a certain role, women have a certain role, but in other families, it's reversed. And understanding how gender plays a part, and then starting to look at, what do I fear? What are so many people are afraid of success, right? More people are afraid of success than failure. And starting to recognize that and go, oh, wow, I really am afraid. What's the worst that can happen if I have success? I might have to, confront some issues. And so through the course, we really do a lot of exploring of what did I learn growing up? What are some money experiences that I had as a child? What do I want in my life now? And how can I actually then start to turn my dreams into reality? A lot of times a dream is just something in the future. And in the course, we actually turn it into, how do I make it a goal, put a timetable on it, and then actually bring it to fruition?
Wow. So, what's beautiful about what you're doing is you've taken money and put it into the soul of the person. And I think there's so few people who do that. Money is objective, it's hardcore. Then you have feelings, and you have your vision and your goals and where you're trying to go. So I find that fascinating that you've put that together as you have.
Yeah.
Because it is what we spend a lot of time as human beings in companies. We argue over it. Where are we going to put our money? How are we going to spend it? Right? There's at every level an emotion that goes with those decisions. And it impacts, I think, how we honestly come to the table. So I was thinking about a conversation with a CFO of a major company, and his comment was, my job is to always say no. and probably it is, because his job is to manage the expenses and to keep the company as profitable as possible, right? So the less you spend and the more you take in, the more profit you have at the end. But it's such a habit that then people don't come with things anymore because they know it's a no. Right?
Absolutely.
Which is an emotion. So how does one begin these conversations that are difficult?
So, it starts with a commitment to be willing to be uncomfortable initially, because it gets uncomfortable, and a willingness to be open to, are there other possibilities? As I built my company, I brought in a lot of curiosity. Wow, I'm really curious about that. Wow, isn't it interesting how I seem to gravitate to these kinds of clients, or I hire these kinds of people? I asked myself, if I were a client, would I want to be a client of my company? As a staff person, I say to myself, would I want to work for me? And if not, what would I do differently to create an environment where I, as a client, or I as a staff member, would want to be a part of Bob's company? And it requires a little bit of space to be able to my staff is allowed to come to me and say, hey, something's not working. It doesn't mean they get the final decision, but I create space for them to be able to come and say, I think we could do this better. I make it a team effort. Every part of the team is important. I just happen to be, my name's on the door, but I really welcome the feedback, and I really value what my staff is bringing to me. Some people will say, hey, if I could get this person for $30 an hour, we'll save so much money. But I look at somebody and say, the person that's $35 an hour or $50 an hour has so much more skill that in the long run, I actually save money by investing in people and the relationship. So I'm not just looking at, did I save $5? Because maybe exponentially I didn't.
Right. So one of the things that I've had really a great deal of fun with, actually, during this time, as we have dealt with the uncertainty with COVID-19, is asking brokers and different people in the financial world, how do they see things being different for individuals, for companies coming out of this? What will have changed? Will anything have changed? And so let me ask you that question also. What will be different?
What I hope will be different is I hope that people will take this time and recognize that maybe it's not so bad to just slow down a little bit. Like that we don't need to be running on the hamster wheel so fast. And that maybe, there's a lot of people that live check to check and they're still surviving, even though I'm sure there's a lot of fear and anxiety. I hope that people will start to really look at priorities and say, do I really need to have 3 cars and the jet ski? Or do I want to have a college fund for my kid? And really start to think about what are the priorities and then line them up. It doesn't mean that you can't have all of it, but at least if we can start to organize what's important to me the most and then work from there. I really hope that people take this time to be reflective and start to value the fact that I miss connection right now. I would like to be able to hold somebody's hand or I've been doing lots of Zooming, but it would be human contact is important. The environment is important. So I hope that people will really take the time to reflect about what's important to them and spend a little more time with their kids or spend a little more time sharing a meal with somebody instead of on the go. That's what I hope people will do and really prioritize about where their money goes. And yeah.
So what's interesting about what you're saying is, if when I work with people and I'm talking with them about what's going on, why they're doing things as they do within a company, a leader to colleagues or whatever. One of the things that I realize is if people aren't willing during that time to take time to reflect, no matter what I do, it is very difficult to make the changes within the organization to help make it healthier, right?
Yeah.
And, but we've got so many people that have been Monday through Friday on an airplane going someplace, and they may be in 2 different cities in one day sometimes.
Right.
And sometimes, some people even more than that, sometimes in a day. And flying all over to different countries as well, doing business, and they come home exhausted, give the leftovers to their family.
Right.
And then on Sunday evening or early Monday morning, start again. And so they would say, well, I'll think about it on the plane. But the problem is on the plane, they're getting ready for their meeting. They're thinking about the mess they just left at home, the pieces they couldn't pick up in the 1.5 days slot of time that they had, right? Yeah. So reflection, I just find that fascinating that even at the financial level, you see that reflection is so critical and taking the time for it. And it's the one thing we don't do. We get so busy. You're right, being hamsters, we don't do that.
It's so important. I know with the Comedy Store and a lot of my clients and with my own staff, we're taking the time to just, how's everybody doing? What's going on for you? Do you need anything? Why don't you leave a little early today? Let's all just really focus on staying healthy. And so having that space to reflect, I think it's so invaluable with businesses because we all are human beings. And right. That's what connects us is our humanity. And I want us all to be able to be the best version of ourselves in relationship, at work. And if we can slow down a little bit, I think it leaves enough a space to actually have more creativity and more productivity.
You know what, as people think about leaving legacy, thoughts that you have for them in terms of thinking about their money so they have legacy or how they should plan for that?
Well, I think it's really important to get clear about what you want your legacy to be. Do I want to leave money to a college to build a building? Do I want to leave it to my children? You look at somebody like Bill Gates, who's leaving, most of his money to organizations that are in service. And so whatever that legacy is for people, I think it's really important to get clear about it and then actually work out a plan to get there. Instead of, one day I'm going to have this big legacy. No, actually, okay, I want to, I know for myself, I want to have a scholarship at the college that I went to. I've figured out how much I need to fund, and I'm putting all that together, and I've addressed it in my life insurance so that it's not, something I'm going to do later. It's actually something I'm doing now. I'm laying the groundwork so that when the time comes, I will have the legacy instead of putting it off. I've worked with a lot of people that don't want to deal with legacy or the future because they're like, if we start talking about it, then that means I might die. And
interesting.
And we don't want to have that conversation. The reality is we're probably all going to die. I haven't met anybody yet that's beat it. And so to start planning now for the legacy, because I do think most of us, I think actually all of us want to be the best version of ourselves. And I think we all want to actually have impact or feel like that we've made an impact on the world and that we want to leave the world a better place. I think deep down, we all have that desire. And it's okay to have that desire. I think it's awesome. And I want to have impact, and I want to actually be really clear and conscious in my intentions to make sure that I do.
Bob, we could go on with this for a long time. And I think it's one of those things that people could benefit so much if only we could have a discussion at the same time as we have this, right? So people could, it's not so much calling in with questions, but to generate their own discussion about what their own observations are, because it's key to so much of what we do.
Absolutely.
Our time goes very quickly. And so before we leave, though, I would like to know anything we haven't talked about that you would really like to share with the audience that you think is important for them to think about.
Well, I think right now it's really important for people to sit down and reflect. Journaling is a great way to do it. Sit down with your kids, sit down with your spouse, your partner, your parents, and actually start having some conversations, not conflicts. A lot of people think a conversation around money has to be a conflict. It doesn't. And to really actually start talking about what's important to each member of the family, and how do we work together, and how do we honor what each of us brings to the table, and really work on getting back to connection and actually figuring out what's important and how money and finances play a part in that. Because I certainly think the more we have abundance, the easier it is to be able to have our legacy, to be able to live the life that we want. But to do it with integrity and to do it with connection and relationship. So just spend the time.
Let me ask you a personal question. If you don't want to answer it, you don't have to, but
okay.
With your own family,
mm-hmm.
How do you begin that conversation? Where do you start? And how do you set boundaries so it doesn't go into a duke it out session?
Yeah. So the way that I do that is I set the parameters. Hey guys, I want to have this conversation. It might get uncomfortable. I'm not sure where it's going to go, but I'm wondering if everybody would be willing to indulge me. And can we just start with a basic conversation? We don't have to solve it all today, but we need to talk about the budget, or we need to talk about some financial choices because we can't do A, B, and C. So let's figure out which one we can. And I want everybody to be able to have a voice. Are you willing? And I find that if we're actually asking people to assist us and help us, rather than telling them what they need to be doing, we get a lot more engagement. And so rather than saying to the wife or the partner, no, that's not the way it is, it's like, hey, help me figure out a better way so that we can all thrive. And so that's how I set parameters is I ask for permission, I ask for willingness, and like, hey, and if it gets crazy, let's just take a break.
Got it. Great, great ground rules. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna take and use those. So that'll be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And for all of you who are listening, Bob has graciously offered to give a 25% discount to any of you who are listening. We will put the link for the promo and the URL to link up to be able to get to the course that Bob is offering so that you can benefit from it. It is, I think, something that we can all use, especially coming out of this time right now. Anytime we can always use it, I think, but especially right now. So looking in the show notes, we will have it there for you. And please, please enjoy it because it is your future. Our relationships with everything is our future. And so it also will impact your ability to leave a legacy at some point. Bob, you have been incredible. Thank you so much for your wisdom. And then also your Money Nerve book. Is it on Amazon?
It is on Amazon. That's the best place to get it.
Okay.
It's on Amazon. And you can always check out the moneynerve.com website. We've got blogs. We've got tools for people for communicating around money.
Okay, super, super. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you, everybody, for being with us today on Building My Legacy podcast. Bob, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell button above. Leave comments. We'd love to hear what you think. And visit our other social media links as well. Thanks much.